So in this video, we're just going to have a look at how we inspect wooden poles on our high ropes courses. So there's three types of inspection that we're going to do this afternoon. So we're going to start with a visual inspection of the pole, and that's going to be looking for things like animal damage, any sort of shakes or fissures, checking the ground around the base of the pole if it's been buried. We're then going to start with a physical inspection. So we're going to use our sounding hammer just to see if there's any early indication of rot, and then we're going to finish with using our specialist IML drill, which is going to give us a really accurate picture of what's going on inside that pole. So yeah, let's get stuck into it. So to start with, on our high ropes course, we are going to have a look and see if the poles are vertical. So the official term for this is within the parameters of vertical. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our plumb line. We're going to put our plumb line at the top of the pole with a weight at the bottom, and essentially if we hold that line on one side of the pole, the bottom of the pole needs to fall onto that line, so it needs to touch at the bottom. We're going to do that on all three poles on this ropes course. The next thing we're going to look at is for any shakes and fissures. So these are the cracks that run up and down our pole. Okay, so we've got some discard criteria that we're looking for. So if it's got a crack more than 50% the total length of the pole, and it has to be connected. So we can see here that we've got a small crack here and a small crack here, and we've got this separation. So they have to be connected. We're looking for if they are go to a depth greater than half the diameter of the pole, and if they are greater than 12 millimeters in width. And if it meets one of those criteria, that would be enough to condemn the pole. One of the other things we're looking for is something called creep. So creep is a term used to describe fatigue that happens over a long period. So what we've got is at the top of this high ropes course, we've got this metal beam on one side of the pole. So it's quite a high load on one side. So what the pole naturally is going to fatigue. And what we're looking for is to make sure that the tops of these poles aren't leaning to one side due to the weight of that beam. So a really good thing to do is what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to go and stand in that field over there, and then you'll be able to look back onto the course and see it and see if it's happening or not. Our final visual inspection is these poles are buried, so we're going to check around the bases of the poles and make sure there's no sort of depressions or areas of weakness on the floor which might indicate a change of soil underground. Okay, and that would be the finish of our visual inspection. So once we've done our visual inspection, what we're going to move on to is using our hammer. We're going to do a hammer test all the way around the pole. I'm going to start like a sort of a top hand height, and I'm going to repeatedly hit the pole. What I'm listening for is any change in pitch. So like a metallic sound is good. If there's sort of a dense sudden thud, that's not good for the pole. I'm going to do that all the way around and try and go to ground level as well, and just listen for the change. So you can hear that there is a bit of a change in the sound as you get sort of around this front face and towards the ground there. So then what I would move on to is using our IML drill in those specific areas, and that's going to give you a really accurate reading of what's going on inside the pole there. So now we've done our hammer test on the pole, what we're going to do is use our IML drill, and that's going to give us a bit more of an accurate reading rather than just listening. So how this works is we're going to send a little 3mm drill bit into the pole, and what this is going to do is this is going to come out with a reading on our graph of the amount of resistance that drill bit gets as it goes through the pole. What we're looking for is we don't want this line to flatline. It's a bit like being in hospital. As you can see here, we've got a little bit of a drop 12 centimeters into the pole, but nothing that we need to worry about yet. That would just be sort of to monitor every year and just see if it gets any worse. So it's worth noting that not everyone has an IML drill. So one of the things that's recommended is if you don't have access to that tool, what you can do is dig the pole. So if a pole is buried in the ground, it should be buried at least a third of its total length. So what we're going to do now is, imagine we don't have an IML drill. We're going to dig 360 degrees around the pole to a depth of at least 300 mil, and then we can carry on using our hammer on the pole lower down. And again, that's going to give us a good indication of the level of the rot in the pole without using a specialist tool like a drill. So we've still got a little bit more depth to go, nearly down to 300 on this side, but already we can actually start to see the poles in really good condition. This isn't too bad to dig through, mostly just like pea shingle, getting down into a bit of clay. Sometimes you might find when you start to dig there's all sorts of rubble, and actually it's really hard going digging down. But yeah, we're going to keep going and then carry on with our hammer test. And then hopefully these poles are all good. So once you've finished with your hammer test and you've filled the hole back in, it's really important to make sure it's fully compacted around the pole and you've not left any sort of air pockets or gaps underground that the water could pool in. So just spend a bit of time making sure you filled it in correctly. And then that basically concludes our wood pole inspection. So the three main tests of a visual, like a hammer test, physical inspection, and then moving on to either dig or use a specialist tool like an IML drill. It's worth noting that you need to make sure that you're competent when inspecting the poles and any other part of the ropes course. So there are a variety of courses that you can go on to, from wire rope inspector courses, wood pole inspector courses, operational and maintenance courses, and then you can also become an inspector. And there's a variety of different providers that run these, through to sort of independent companies up to IRCA that run their own courses as well, and then you can go on to become an IRCA inspector as well. So thanks for watching. We've got loads of other videos. We have put some links in this video as well, just at the critical points, so make sure you go and check those out. And yeah, give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you again another day. Thanks very much.